streaming this morning, so underway. Cool. Welcome, councillors, to the representation review hearing, and I have an apology from Councillor Mackle, and everyone else is here, which is great. You've got all the information on your tablets for submissions that we received, and there's was it 15 of them or 11 of them number, and we have two submitters who are going to present to us this morning, and we have Methven Community Board with us now, so we'll move on to them very shortly. Megan, Robin and Ellen, welcome, and I think there's an apology from Calvin who couldn't make it today, so you will do as you've got an extra and Richie as well, so but welcome, and we've got your submissions on page 7, councillors, of your tablets of the document. And Megan, I think you might be doing the speaking, so we want to hear from you. You all have the opportunity to speak, so and present your submission, then we'll ask questions, and then we'll move on to our next speaker after that, submitter after that. So Megan, the floor is yours.
So
the right hand one.
Right.
Perfect.
Technology, kia ora, councillors and staff. And firstly, apologies from Calvin and Richie. Apologies, I can't be here. You've got the submission in front of us. I think the main thing is that we don't support the reduction to 4 members. There's quite a few reasons we believe that. The first one is that, and the main one, is that the town boundaries most likely going to increase, and we've seen a substantial increase in number of people in our community as well. So we need to be doing that justice over the long term, anticipating that population is going to rise. So maybe we're overrepresented now, but who's to say in 3 years' time we're not, and we need to redo this whole process again. So that's the main thing. We also believe that 5 members bring very differing skills and experiences through the board. And more touch points into the community, bringing more voice, getting more coverage across our community. Do you want to do the democracy one?
Oh, yeah, and the balance is the casting votes, etc. within the group. We believe that the bigger number gives us a better opportunity to have a quorum, plus the experience is able to give better voting and better analysis of anything that's going on within the board.
5's an odd number, even with the 2 additional councillors, versus 4 with 2 additional councillors is 6. So that makes it. Do you want to see? The cost.
Yeah, well, as far as the cost saving is concerned, I don't think there's, I don't think our wages are breaking the place. So there's not a lot of difference there. Also, too, like I said, today, 3 of us can make it, 2 out. So, I mean, when you're down to 4, you're cutting the odds back to a lot less. Yeah.
I think the one argument for reducing the numbers has been that there's been 2 elections that have gone to by-elections. Those by-elections have been, some of them have been quite hotly contested with a lot of people elected. We also believe that there's been a lot more advertisement and engagement within the Methven community around our local democracy, and I will be very surprised moving forward if we don't have a lot more people putting their names forward into that space. So yeah, thank you. But yeah, the main thing being the town's growing, and we need to make sure we represent that and future-proof it for the next 6 years.
Thank you, Megan, for your submission, and Ellen and Robin. That's great.
Thank you.
And it's good to explore the options, and as we did, dropping, and you've given good reasoning as why we shouldn't. And yeah, we'll deliberate on that later this morning. And make a decision. But just some questions, and one from Councillor Cameron.
Thank you for your submission. Do you know, and I don't know whether you do, what the projected population growth is over the next 10 years for Methven?
Sorry,
No,
we
don't-
have
don't really
no
know.
information on that at all.
No.
It would be good, it'd probably be easy enough to figure out, looking at the number of empty subdivisions that are there
Yes.
and the potential for that to be built, yeah.
And one more question, it's probably not for you guys. Can I ask a question offline with regards to the dollars? You mentioned the dollars wouldn't break the bank, by maintaining status quo. I thought the dollars would remain the same and the existing people would get a higher rate. It's not a saving of money, as I understand it.
There would be no saving money at all.
No saving of money.
The
It would be
the
spread
pool is
around
set.
4 as opposed to 5, I think, yeah.
Yeah, the pool is set and it's it'd be divided over less than the more. So there's no dollar saving at all. Yeah.
Could I just add to that? It's as a member of the board that the increase of someone's proportion of wage that they're money that they're receiving now is less than what it would be having another voice around the table. Like that's a high. It goes beyond what they're getting paid having that voice there.
Yeah, the payment's a token gesture, I think. Yeah. Just your question on population growth, we will have done that through the long-term plan. So when we go to deliberations, you could ask the staff then what the population growth for Methven is expected to be. Yeah. Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Megan, so how many people are in Methven? How many people in the area?
Within the voting
Yep.
area,
For example,
currently is 1,200.
Calvert.
No, is there more than that? There's 2,000 in the actual town itself, yeah.
Because the area is still to be expanded, because at the moment it doesn't include the whole of the town. A lot of the new subdivisions are not included, so under the new borders that'll include a lot more, and it'll be getting close to 2,000 if we add in a few others. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
I think that number might be in the consultation document that we send out, so we could ask staff when we go to deliberations to clarify what that number is. Yeah. Lynette.
I was just thinking, we've had 2 by-elections up there over the years, and they are costly. So going forward in the future, are you having and trying to keep this extra person? Are you going to sort of have a look at your engagement plan with people, put some process in there to actively get out in the community and keep the numbers up?
I'd really like to see that, and we're also beginning the strategic plan development with the community. Thanks to you guys, put aside in the LTP, and I think that engagement is going to promote that as well.
Oh, that's good to see it happening. Yeah.
That was my question exactly. Thank you.
Councillor McMillan. Oh, no. There's no further questions. Thank you very much. We'll deliberate on this later this morning, and we'll have an answer within the next wee while. So thank you very much for coming in. It's much appreciated. Thank you. More than welcome to sit in for the rest of the hearing as well, if you wish. So next up we have David Eklund from Federated Farmers. Welcome, David. And your submission is has its own document on our Stellar program.
Sorry, what page is it?
Welcome, David. The floor is yours. We have your submission. We've read it. It's in front of us, and if you'd like to talk to it, that would be great. And then we'll go to question time.
Which one?
That's good. No, right at the
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mayor and councillors, for the opportunity to speak this morning to the Federated Farmers submission. We support the initial proposal of maintaining and it maintains that strong rural representation within council. The ward system is supported. Each area within the district is unique, and it's important that we maintain that representation. And we support the 2 councillors per per eastern and western ward. The geographic scale needs to be considered when considering it over as well as the population base. I suppose it's a similar argument that's going to be presented maybe this afternoon when considering it. And as you can see, our second preference is the mixed system. That's pretty much where we sit. So questions.
Okay, we'll go to questions. Just thinking your second proposal, by dropping the number of councillors in the Ashburton Urban would put the representation per councillor out of kilter.
Yeah, correct.
So the chance of that happening, I think, would be very slim.
Yeah.
I think you're aware of that. Councillors, questions? There's any very well presented submission then, clear and concise. So thank you, David. More than welcome to sit on deliberations, which we will move into very shortly. So thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
Should we just adjourn for 5 minutes and we come back in 5 minutes? Right, adjourned. councillors now, Mel and Mark. So if you could just take us through the process from here, please.
Okay, thank you. So today the purpose today is to work through the feedback that we've received on the representation review process, and essentially to get direction from yourselves as to what you want to include in the final proposal, which will be advertised or which will be adopted on the 4th of September and then publicly advertised after that for a month. In terms of the process that we've been through over the last wee while, just a quick recap. So when we do representation reviews, we're sort of focusing on two key things that feed into that process, what's called fair representation, which is where each member must represent essentially the same number of electors, plus or minus 10%, what's called the plus or minus 10% rule. So that applies in the situation of a ward type situation. It doesn't apply where we've got like a community board process or an at-large system. And also covering the area of what's called effective representation. So have our communities of interest changed? Does our ward boundaries need to reflect that? Do we have enough elected members to represent our people? And how should those members be elected? So either through the at-large type system, so that's across the whole district, or in a ward type situation, or a mix of both. Okay, Mel to do this one.
So in terms of the Local Government Commission, they're currently involved at a technical and advisory level, but we must refer our final proposal to them if it has appeals or objections made against it, or if it doesn't comply with the plus or minus 10% rule. And if it's referred to the Local Government Commission, they will determine the representation arrangements. And also just a reminder that the boundaries for wards and community boards need to be consistent with the Statistics New Zealand mesh block areas. So it's important to note that Council should only make changes to the initial proposal in response to submissions that have been received. And whether or not Council decides to make any changes, we must record the reasons for changes or the reasons for any rejection of submissions, which is legally required for the public notice. So just a quick recap of the process. As you're aware, there's quite a process involved. We've held some workshops, undertaken pre-engagement and considered that feedback, adopted the initial proposal and consulted on that, and then today the Council is considering the feedback received on the initial proposal. As Mark mentioned, the final proposal is due for adoption on the 4th of September, and then appeals and objections will be open from the 12th of September to the 12th of October.
So in terms of our what went out as part of our initial proposal, so that essentially maintained what our status quo, so the total number of councillors was the same, the number of councillors per ward was the same as currently exists. Also maintained that election system of a ward-based system, and the number of wards and ward names, and it maintained the community board in Methven. The changes that were part of that was a tweak to the Ashburton ward boundary to include drawn fields, extending the community board boundary for Methven to cover a bigger area, and the proposal to reduce the number of members for the Methven Community Board from 4 elected instead of 5 elected, remembering that it also has 2 appointed members, that being the Western Ward councillors. In terms of the feedback that we did receive, so we had 14 responses across the district, 1 late submission. Most of the submissions were focused on the proposed changes in Methven. We had no submissions on the Ashburton ward boundary, and you'll see that overall, in terms of that initial proposal, it's sort of pretty split. But within that, obviously, there was particular issues that people were focused on.
So there were 3 suggested changes that were raised in submissions. So the reduction of Ashburton Ward councillors, changes to the Methven Community Board boundary extension, and the most commonly submitted on point was the preference to retain the current number of Methven Community Board members. So we'll go through those. The first one is that a submitter suggested that their second preference would be to have 2 councillors for Western and Eastern wards, but to reduce the Ashburton ward to 3 councillors. So we've shown the calculations in the tables, and this proposal doesn't meet the plus or minus 10% rule, which you can see highlighted in the bottom table. So it effectively means that the rural wards would be overrepresented and the urban ward underrepresented. And if council did want to make this change, it would go to the Local Government Commission to be considered. So with that in mind, does council want to make any changes to the proposal in response to this submission? If yes, why? And if no, why not?
So we're to decision-making mode now. Before we do that, councillors, we had 14 submissions, and you've had them all and read them all and been summarised in front of us just now. So do you want a reduction of the Ashburton Ward councillors? Comments, please. Councillor Miller.
Thank you. No, I don't think so. I think if it's not going to meet that threshold, then I think we just leave it as it is. In our last representation review, we did have a change in the number of councillors from
the threshold anyway. So, but I believe it works exceptionally well the way it is, and there is no reason to change.
Councillor Todd.
Definitely in favour of the status quo, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Decision is status quo. No change. Thank you.
Okay, so the second major issue raised was around extending the boundary, Methven Community Board boundary further. So you'll see there on both sides of Mount Hutt Station Road past Holmes Road on either side, or also there's 2 options that were part of this submission. So we'll go through those and so the first one was around extending the Methven Community Board boundary on both sides of Hutt Station Road. So the map there shows the existing boundary in terms of the blue area, the proposed area of change, which is the bit that went out for consultation, which is the hashed area, and this area is about essentially adding in that yellow area as part of that boundary as well. So the reason why it's that whole area is because it has to meet Stats NZ mesh block, and that's the mesh block in that particular area. So that was one suggestion from this particular submitter. The other one was around neither side of Mount Hutt Station Road, or only extending it to include the golf course. So we think this one is just the bottom hashed area, so the Methven golf course area. So just that bit being added, and not the yellow hashed area being added to the board boundary. So she's sort of given 2 options that she proposes. So there's a summary again of what the submitter suggested. So again, it's around whether you think that's appropriate and what the area that the board boundary should cover. In terms of the additional area, we estimated there's about 30 people in terms of population in this area.
Mark, if you included the golf course in the boundary, you wouldn't pick up any people because no one lives on the golf course. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I mean it's the whole mesh block, so it's the area that the mesh block
Which is more than the
has
golf
to
course.
be included, so it's more than golf course. That's
Okay,
right.
there would be people in there. Yeah. They've got questions, Councillor Ellis?
Thank you. If you added that first area in, the one on the left up there, what are the implications of that when we haven't consulted on that?
So it would be a change. So that would mean that I mean any changes mean the final proposal was changed. So that means it's open to objection.
Councillor McMillan?
So just double checking, the black area with the lines across it, that's the area that we're proposing to change.
That's right.
And we did have quite a few workshops up with the Methven Community Board and went through the different areas and the different mesh blocks, and the one that they agreed on was that black area, which I think we need to take into account. So I know we have one submitter wanting the yellow part of that to be included, but I think the reasoning behind that was there weren't a lot of people, there were a few lifestyle blocks, but not to the extent of the black area, which has got a couple of new subdivisions in, which is why they went. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, I think it was the sort of direction of growth within that particular hashed black hashed area. Yeah.
To the when the submitters were here, we had two questions. One was, what's the population growth expected for Methven? And the second one was, what is the population of Methven in the community board area? Do you have those numbers?
Yes, we do. You do that?
So the estimated population that the community board covers currently is 1,970 people. The hashed area that we were proposing to extend covers an additional 50 people. And the the estimates of population forecast, which is for Methven Township, not necessarily this exact area. In 2023 it was estimated to be 2,010 people. In 2028 it's estimated to be 2,120. 2033 is 2,230, and 2038 is 2,320 people.
Thank you. Councillor Lovett.
I was just going to ask, bringing these areas in, would it have any impact on rates? Would the rating value go up, bringing them in?
It would just spread out the rates for the Methven Community Board across more ratepayers. So it wouldn't change any valuations.
Right.
It would just mean that because the Methven Community Board rate is a particular rate applying to that area, it would mean more people would be paying for that rate.
Right. I think if it was contentious, we would have had more people wanting this, but it's only one person, and I don't believe we should change.
Councillor Wilson.
Just it's a question. When you increase an area, you have to go. You talk the hash areas, which is the population blocks effectively. Can we influence them effectively? So, because they would assume that towns grow in a certain way, so in the future the town may grow half of a hash block may be urbanised and half may be quite rural. So, can we influence how those hash blocks go in the future? So that the next representation review in the distant future, we've got blocks that we can actually bring in, which makes sense rather than having to bring in a whole lot of rural area at the same time.
I mean, the legislation is pretty clear. It has to be a mesh block. We do provide advice or feedback to Stats NZ on a sort of an annual basis in terms of growth. So they do adjust those mesh blocks from time to time, but it's not something that they do sort of on an ongoing basis. So we do have some impact in terms of adjusting those mesh blocks in future.
Councillor McMillan.
Just a quick question. When Megan mentioned 1,200 before, I think she meant ratepayers or rateable properties. Would that be right? So 2,000 people live in Methven, but I think there's 1,200 rateable properties. I think.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Further questions? Decision? Do you want to make changes to the proposal in response to this submission? I think the answer was no. Stick with the boundaries that were consulted on. All in agreement? Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
So this was the topic that we received the most objections on. 5 submitters suggested to leave the number of members elected to the Methven Community Board as 5 instead of reducing to 4. So in the table we've just included some reasons for or against. So reasons for retaining the proposal is that it's consistent with what we propose to the community. It's considered fair and effective representation for a community of this size, and there's less chance of needing a by-election, which can be costly. And reasons for reverting to the status quo, which were raised by submitters, is that there's more people to represent, the population's growing and the boundaries being extended, a better chance for more diverse views, different skills and experience, and that a reduction of members results in an even number, meaning the chairperson's opinion is more likely to be overrepresented.
I think the submitters have put a good case to us, and listening to them and reading their submissions, I think that status quo of 5 members should remain. But happy to go to Councillor Brahm for your suggestion.
Just a question, if I can. As a councillor, we've got about 3,000 people per councillor. How is the board working? Because there's only 2,000 people for 5 people. So that's 400 people per. Yeah, how's that working? So, is there a reason for that? Or how many people can put in a community board?
I think you can have as many as you like, but we councillors represent the whole district, where the community board just represents the Methven area. Community boards are quite common throughout New Zealand, and more so in the bigger cities, where a councillor could have, in Auckland, say, 200,000 or 300,000 people they've got to represent. So they have many community boards where they get better representation at their local area, and Methven is part of that. So,
but there's no rule that you can have so many people.
No.
Okay.
Community boards cost money, and Methven have a UAGC to pay for their community board, so it's not a financial burden on the rest of the community as such. Liz?
Thank you. I've been a member of the Methven Community Board since 2007, so I've kind of seen the ebbs and flows of people standing, and I know you've mentioned there's 2 by-elections, one in 2013 and one in 2019. The one in 2013, that didn't end up going to a by-election because we only had 1 nomination. Is that correct? I'm trying to remember. I know the one in 2019, there was 1 position and 3 people stood for that, but I don't think the 2013 one went. Yeah. And I agree with keeping it at 5. I think it's a good number, and it feels like now there's a lot more promotion done by council on standing for council, standing for community boards, etc. So I think there's a bit more of an interest. So happy with 5.
Yeah, just on the 2013, it was a by-election, but only 1 person stood, but the cost was still cost to get to that outcome. Yeah. Councillor Todd.
Thank you. I'm very relaxed with this to keep the numbers at 5. I think the onus is on the Methven community to ensure that they get enough candidates to stand. So I think if they're active in that area, then we don't have any concerns.
Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. I think we've heard clearly from the people affected themselves that 5's the number. It looks like they've got a diverse range of age and interests, so I think it looks good.
Councillor Cameron.
I would like to see it left at the status quo.
Status quo, it is 5 members. I think the general consensus. Thank you.
Okay, just to clarify a couple of things. So the membership for a community board can have a minimum of 4, a maximum of 12. That includes appointed members. And in terms of the pay aspect, so members, it's not a pool, so it's actually a membership.
It is. Right.
Each member gets a salary. I mean, they're not high salaries, to be fair, but it is an individual salary for each member. Just to clarify a couple of things there. But
so there would have been a cost saving if that...
A small cost saving.
Small,
yeah.
but there would have been one. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Okay, so from that you want to go back to 5, is what we're saying? All good. So in terms of, I don't know whether you want to have a look at over any of the other submissions in terms of quickly whipping through those.
What about the extension of the Ashburton town boundary down Trevor's Road?
Yes.
Trevor's Road?
Yes. Yep. So there weren't any submissions on that.
There were no submissions, so
at all. So
it's taken as a given.
We can, if that's what you want to retain, we can include that as part of the final proposal.
Yeah, I think that's the general consensus. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. We can go through those submissions if you've got them there.
So on Stella, I think it is. Is that the summary? So in terms of if you look at your summary of feedback on Stella, so maybe starting on page 4, support for the initial proposal. And then any comments on that from the various submitters?
Yep. I think going through those submissions, what we've come up with is generally in line with the submitters' requests, except Federated Farmers, which was their preferred option was the status quo. We're not moving to what their option B was, or the second option.
Cool. And then from page 7 onwards, the comments not in support in terms of the various issues that have been raised.
Yep. So there's one submitter there, in 1.3, which is not relevant here. So where does that submission go to, or does it, or not? Does it head somewhere? Obviously, the submitter was concerned about something.
Yeah, I mean that's obviously not a route review issue. We'll just respond to them on the basis that it was considered as part of this process, but it's just a general comment, really.
So that might go to the Methven Community Board for their consideration.
Could do, yep.
As it affects, it relates to Methven.
Yep.
And they do with it what they wish. So,
right.
Nothing further, Mark?
So yeah, just in terms, I guess, of the next stage of the process, so we'll bring a report to you on the 4th of September, which will be the final proposal. because there is a change to that, then it does mean it's open to objection. So we would put it out for a month through objection, and if there were objections received, then that would go to the Commission to make the final determination. If there wasn't, then that would become the final proposal. So that's the deadlines there for that we're aiming towards. And if we got to the point of needing a Commission hearing, we have already locked in a date for that with the Commission, because they're already locking in dates with councils around the country because they've got a number to do. So there's a date there scheduled if that was needed.
Thank you. Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. Can objections only be lodged against the change we've made, or can it be an objection against any part of it now?
My understanding is it's any part.
Okay.
Yep.
As far as I understand as well, it's also open to appeals. So the submitters who suggested changes and we haven't made those changes, they can appeal what they submitted on as well.
Thank you. Nothing further. We've made the decision. You've got all the answers you require. You'll be a report coming to council on the 4th of September, and it'll, for final tick-off. So if that's no further questions or comments, I'll declare the hearing closed, and thank you for your attendance, and thank all the submitters for their submissions. It was a good process and with good engagement, and hopefully we've got the right decision. So thank you all.
Thank you.